Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the Building and Cooling Pavilion here at COP30. And welcome to a side event session that touches upon innovating climate finance for building, how development banks and carbon markets can close the financing gap. We will have a discussion between policymakers, project developers and agencies that are active in the field of buildings, and hope to discuss experiences of development banks, but also on innovative financing instruments to tackle the building sector. We will have 2 sessions today, and both sessions will be kicked off by a keynote intervention from one of the panelists. My name is Joscha Hosemusch. I'm working at GIZ, the German Development Cooperation Agency, in the context of the PEEP program. And I'm also co-chairing the Global ABC Finance Hub together with the colleagues from the International Finance Corporation. So let's kick us off with the first panel, which will focus on Article 6 for buildings and construction. Are Article 6 instruments a game changer? To mobilize climate finance is the overarching question. And I would like to invite our keynote speaker to the stage from the Indonesian Ministry for Energy and Mineral Resources, Muhammad Arifudi, coordinator of the Energy Conservation Program. Please join me on the stage.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning everyone. I'm here chanting Ibu Prof. Enia. She can join us today because there is another assignment for the minister, then she asked me to deliver her keynote for this morning. So allow me to deliver her keynotes regarding to the our experiences in buildings and how to implement the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Buildings are one of the major contributors to emission globally and include in Indonesia. Yet they offer immense potential for climate actions, and Indonesia is committed to decarbonizing this sector through strengthening regulations, cross-sectoral collaboration, and also innovative financing. And in our second NDC, we have targeted 1.2 until 1.5 gigaton of CO2 equivalent by 2035, where the building plays a critical role. And our government regulation number 33/2023 that mandates implementation of energy management for buildings, high consuming buildings over 500 ton oil equivalent per year. And for the last month is about 128 buildings already reported to us that they reported that the actions save 34 gigawatt hours and reducing around 24,500 ton of CO2 equivalent. Indonesia also expanding the implementation of minimum energy performance standard for appliances. Currently there are 6 maps. We are expanding until around 18 until 2060. And these all must have a national coordination and governance. So between us, between the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Ministry and Public Works, and also Ministry of Home Affairs, because these three ministries who responsible for building energy efficiency, we have a trilateral MOUs that strengthens and build a local implementation of clean building systems. And regarding to the financing and Article 6 cooperations, we know that the decarbonization needs more than just policy, but also needs finance. So we are Indonesia is preparing governance framework for Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, including MRV systems and national registry, and also integrity safeguards. We see that synergy between development banks and carbon markets. There will be a blended finance, such as guarantees, concessional loans, and result-based payments. They can unlock building retrofit and also efficient cooling system. And together with PIP Indonesia, we have trained stakeholders on Article 6 readiness. We have signed a implementation agreement with PIP Indonesia to scale up energy efficiency building investment. In closing, Indonesia still remains committed to net zero by 2060, building one of our central visions to achieve our net zero emissions. Through collaborations, innovation, and also integrity, we believe that we can close the climate finance gap, and we can accelerate the energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed, for these insights. Okay.
I have a clarification question. Thank you very much. You said that you did an implementation agreement, but I didn't understand with who, or
with PIP Indonesia.
With PIP Indonesia.
With PIP Indonesia.
Well, thank you for these opening insights. I think this will provide a very good basis for the upcoming discussions. I know that you have to leave because you have another engagement. So help me in thanking Mohammed for this intervention. And with this, I would invite the first panel to the stage. So we have Holger Treidel from GIZ, Head of Section for Climate Policy. Please join me on stage. Nana Maidugu, Head of Sustainability and ESG at the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority. And Nafa Bachari, Director General of the National Agency for Energy Conservation of Tunisia. Please join me on stage. We have only 2 mics, so we need to manage this. Okay, so in the first panel discussion, we will try to delve much deeper into the discussion on how Article 6 can actually work for the building and construction sector, and whether or not it's a game changer to mobilize climate finance to this sector. We will start with an intervention from my dear colleague Holger Treidel, who is representing GIZ, and I would like to ask you, Holger, if you could share maybe some of the GIZ experiences that we have in working on Article 6 and carbon markets for green buildings, and what insights of the work that we are doing with partner countries you could bring to this discussion.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me here. Pleasure. Yes, I'm happy to share some of the experiences of GIZ. As we heard this morning, the importance of the sector, the building sector, in terms of GHG emission reductions is enormous. 40% of the global emissions come from this sector. And we know and heard also from Indonesia that still the investments into building energy efficiency are relatively low. You know, we are hoping for a doubling of the investments until 2030. Currently, we are only at 270 billion US dollars and hoping to double this up to more than 500 billion per year. So climate finance is a big issue in the sector, and we do believe that carbon markets can open a very interesting and promising new roads to access climate finance for the sector. In GIZ, we are working very actively on carbon markets, specifically on Article 6, with the objective to establish high integrity carbon markets. So to make sure in the end that lasting projects with lasting emissions can be generated, and through this vehicle investments can be created and mobilized for the sector. What our experience shows, in order to do that, we need to create the right framework conditions in the countries. We need the legal and policy framework that is right. We need the right capacities, that is a key element. And the third part, we need to work concretely on pilot projects. And all of these are things that we are doing as GIZ, and I would like to give one example, which is the Climate Finance Incubator program that is part of the German Franco partnership on energy efficiency for buildings called BEEP. So under these three elements I mentioned on how we can establish or foster high integrity carbon markets, first we need to strengthen the framework conditions. We need to support the process of collecting reliable information for a precise baseline, and also to develop reliable monitoring mechanisms. The second centerpiece, as I said, create capacities at the national, at the local level, at the institution, each of the partner countries. And the third element is to work very closely between the public and the private sector together. In the framework of this project I mentioned, we have been working with countries. One is Nigeria. A colleague right next to me will certainly elaborate a little bit more about that later on. The second is Indonesia, and the third one is Morocco. I would like to share very briefly a few of the first results from this BEEP Climate Finance Incubator project. In Nigeria, there are two projects that are currently under development in the housing sector, including energy efficiency measures, plus one in the use of solar PV power generation. And in Morocco, there is a pipeline now of 7 projects that are being developed covering material production for building use. We have, as part of this initiative, developed a handbook, and that is something I would like to present here briefly. The handbook for the development of Article 6 projects in the building sector. That is a handbook that gives really the basics on how carbon market working, how you can identify a project that works, but also for navigating through the whole process of getting such a project approved. This project, this handbook has been developed over several months together with experts, both carbon markets experts, but also building specialists. It has been launched and endorsed also during this COP just a few days ago, during the first meeting of the Intergovernmental Council for Buildings and Climate, and will also be launched and available on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Holger, for insights. I will just continue with Nana because Holger already referred to the work that you are doing in Nigeria. Maybe you can share some of the insights on the specific projects and the cooperation that we are having on Article 6 in Nigeria, please.
Thank you, Joshua. So good afternoon, morning. I'm still on Nigerian time. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. So talking about green buildings or energy efficiency in the context of NSIA, perhaps I'll just paint a bit of picture of what our portfolio looks like, right? We have 3 core funds, and one of them is focused on enhancing the quality of domestic infrastructure. And so it accounts for 50% of our total AUM and our total investments currently. And so what that means is, our portfolio is exposed to climate risks, particularly the physical risk, because over time we've seen a lot of, flooding, extreme heat. I think those are the 2 key, I would say, physical risks that Nigeria has been facing most recently. And so we approach this through 2 key angles, right? The first is climate resilient infrastructure. So ensuring that the infrastructure that we are developing is, resilient to whether it's the floods, whether it's the extreme heat. And that is not just important for, maintaining a longer life cycle for those projects, but also, would I say, protecting the value of these underlying assets, because at the end of the day you want to deliver the development outcomes, but it's also an investment, right? And so there's the commercial angle of it, and so integrating climate resilience in how we develop infrastructure. And then the second, obviously, is greening, the buildings that we have within that infrastructure portfolio. So whether it's through, integration of renewable energy as part of our energy mix, or even from the design itself of the buildings. And if I was to note a couple of the key projects that we've been engaging with GIZ on, the first is our healthcare portfolio. So we currently have 3 healthcare centers in Nigeria, and we're in the process of developing 13 more healthcare centers across the country. And so with these healthcare centers, right from the design, we're designing them in such a way that, they have minimal environmental impact. We are incorporating renewable energy use because we have all these MRI machines, all these radiology machines and all of that. So we need constant energy. And so using energy sources as well as water and waste management, and even exploring, retrofitting our HVAC systems and all of that. The second project that we're also working on is a hyperscale data center. Now, as you know, with data centers, they are energy extensive, so they need a lot of energy, and they also emit a lot of heat. So incorporating these considerations into that data center, first of all, trying to leverage renewable energy sources for powering the data center, and then highly efficient HVAC systems to reduce the heat that is emitted, when the data centers become operational. And besides that, we also have portfolio companies that are focused on mass housing and affordable housing. So incorporating these green building considerations and scaling up these mass housing projects that are delivered by our portfolio companies. And then from the Article 6, angle, we do have a carbon fund called Carbon Vista, where we invest in carbon projects. And so leveraging Carbon Vista to explore how we could benefit from the high mitigation potential of these green buildings and the greening of this infrastructure. So I say currently, this is how we are approaching it, and just a view of what we're currently doing with GIZ on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana, for these insights. Let's turn to applause. Yeah, very good. Let's turn to Tunisia. Mr. Bachari, from your experience, how do you tackle the potential of Article 6 to unlock climate finance for the building sector?
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon in my citizens in Tunisia. Thank you for this opportunity to tell you about Tunisian experience, how to provide from the Article 6 in Paris Agreement. but just to how to highlight the importance of building sector in Tunisia. The building sector in Tunisia, it is the first energy consumption sector in Tunisia by 36%. It is also the first electricity consumption by more than 50% of all rates. Among this 50%, we can find the cooling mainly in summer. It is representing 60% of electricity consumption in Tunisia. There is, as you see, a large potential in area of emission reduction to the building sector. In Tunisia, our energy strategy, is focused on energy industrial process, but also in building. We started yet with some pilot projects in Tunisia. The first one that I can show you, it is the project of Prosol Elec. It is concerning the building of residential, where it is a big subsidy from the state for this sector in electricity, mainly in electricity. Also, this national program, it is promoting the installation of rooftop PV, and we reached till now more than 400 megawatt in this sector. The second example that I can show you, it is the energy transition in public sector. We started this project in a few years, and we have installed more than 40 megawatt. There is a big potential of emission reduction in the public sector, buildings, and in residential, but also in industrial and tertiary sector. But those pilot projects are insufficient to reach our goals by 2030 and 2035. So we have to upscale this financing and this and to unlock the access to financial and the Article 6 from the Paris Agreement. It is a good opportunity to Tunisia to use it, mainly the Article 6.2 and 6.4. The Tunisian perspective to overall this constraint and to fully the finance for large expansion are available in the Article 6. For us in Tunisia, Article 6 represents a crucial de-risking and aggregation tool for Tunisian building sector by enabling international cooperation and carbon emission reduction trading. Also, it can mobilize a conditional finance, bridging the finance to bridge the finance gap. The Article 6 is also it is a pull factor to us to attract private capitals in ETMOS and to sell some ETMOS and PACM. The best example for that in Tunisia, it is undergoing now. It is the project or the program PIPCOOL. PIPCOOL, it is a program where we can practice combining finance with concessional financing, loan or grants, and also the emission reduction outcomes. The PIPCOOL project is founded by GEZ and the EFD and the Green Climate Fund. Tunisia is committed in two international finance also, the GCM and the Click Foundation opportunity, which offer mechanism for international cooperation to generate tradable emission reduction. In short, we can say that Article 6 could be a bridge between climate ambitions and real investment in greener building that's conditioned by if we translate its mechanism into practical, measurable for local projects. Thank you.
Thank you for lining out, let's say, your perspective on it, and also mentioning the PEEP Cool project. Yeah, as you mentioned, co-funded by the GDF, who has the pavilion just in front of us. So that's quite interesting. You mentioned that it will be a challenge to translate, let's say, the framework into tangible projects and to tap into this potential, and also leverage more carbon finance to flow into the building sector than it has done under the CDM of the Kyoto Protocol, where basically buildings didn't play a big role, right? So the question is, will Article 6 change this somehow or not? I would like to turn back to you, Holger. You mentioned the handbook that was launched today and that's available on the PEEP website. Could you maybe put this handbook a little bit more into perspective? How does this relate to COP 30 that we are currently having here, the discussions on carbon finance and carbon markets? And also tell us more about what's in there, so can have a look maybe to the publication, please.
Thank you, Joscha. Yes, well, we all know that there's been a long history of negotiations on Article 6 over the past COPs, the rule book, and finally the chapter of negotiations being closed at the last COP. So now it's time for implementation. And I think that's the key message also for this COP in general, but specifically on carbon markets on Article 6. Now it's really time to use this potential that Article 6 is opening up and to bring it into practice. And in order to do that, many partner countries will need some more guidance on how to do that. And I think this is exactly what the handbook is doing for the building sector, and what we as GIZ, as I explained, are doing in general to create the conditions and the capacities in the countries to be able to operate this new opportunity. In the handbook, as we said, it's directed both to policy makers, but also to project developers, so a different range of people. It is outlining the different types of buildings that are suitable for Article 6 projects. It's outlining best practice examples, so I think it's also an interesting to have a look at that. It looks at minimum criteria for additionality and integrity, two of the key criteria that we are talking about in carbon markets. It talks about methodologies to be used per project type, and also gives some more recommendations for the further development. So it's really a step-by-step book that can guide you through the process.
Thank you. Thank you, Holger, for promoting this again. Nana, I want to turn to you with maybe a reflection on a different aspect. I mean, you elaborated a lot on your work that you are doing on the mitigation aspect of carbon finance in the building sector. I want to ask you about adaptation, which is the other side of the coin, if you want. But buildings are crucial for adaptation, obviously. We experienced this here in Belém. The heat inside the buildings are, for some, not so bearable, including me. So maybe I want to ask you to reflect more on the question: how can building provide an interesting field to advance on adaptation policies and projects?
So yes, I think particularly since we're talking about Article 6 and in the context of carbon markets, there seems to be, or there's a lot of focus on the mitigation aspect of it, right? Because it is those emissions reductions that you're selling. But then an important component, to be honest, when it comes to carbon projects is the co-benefits of it. And when you think of adaptation or the adaptation benefits of green building or energy efficient, infrastructure, I think it falls under, that co-benefits of such projects. And I think from the design phase of these projects, project developers need to be capturing the adaptation benefits of, greening infrastructure and making it more energy efficient, so that these outcomes are not just measured but also reflected. So whether it's the reduced vulnerability of communities to physical climate risk, or things like the enhanced service delivery from critical infrastructure, so for example schools and hospitals and all of that. So all these are adaptation benefits of the greening, and these need to be properly captured in our carbon project documentation, because it increases the attractiveness of these carbon projects. When you look at the key components that make up a successful carbon project, there's the co-benefit angle of it. And there are a lot of investors that in purchasing carbon credits, they're not just looking for the emissions reductions. It's also about, okay, how does it support the community? How does it benefit the people? And so I think shedding more light on not just the emissions reductions, but the benefits on people, whether it's from health benefits or reduced vulnerabilities or enhanced waste and water and energy efficiency and all of that. So shedding more light a bit more on that, as some of the benefits of greening, we're able to balance that mitigation versus adaptation outcomes of greening buildings and green infrastructure as well.
So much, quite relevant aspects that you're mentioning. Nafar, let's turn back to you, and I want to ask you about another key component, which is data and information. We know that data is essential to access finance, including carbon finance. So could you share some experience that you had in Tunisia in the building sector to address the data gap and how to close it?
Thank you, Georges. It's a good question. Data means transparency, means integrity, means access to finance. If you can have good data that it was published and it can have transparency and integrity, you can access this finance. In Tunisia, our NDC is there is to reach by 2030 45% of emission reduction by 2030. So we have to have put in place some framework, from structure to collect, analyze data, and to verify the data, the MRV. That's what we are doing today in Tunisia. We are under finalizing the establishment of the national entity who will be certifying this emissions and data collection. In our NDC, as I said, more than 70% of emissions is coming from energy sector. And the ANAME, National Agency for Energy Conservation, is working in this emission sector for the energy, and collecting those data, analyzing them, and putting them in public in the web to after that to be more and flexible to access to the green financing in Article 6. Also, Tunisia, it is the pioneer in the region in open data, in the data initiative. We have a national open data portal called Piren Public for public sector, as it is now mentioned. It is when we can find quality, accessibility, and reuse of public data. The international cooperation and capacity building on market on carbon market mechanism could access for those data, which are important to the Article 6 establishes a framework of international cooperation in achieving our NDC. Tunisia today is presenting by those data. It's a good seller of the carbon credit, and we are ready for accepting this finance in ITMOS or in Paris mechanism carbon. Data analysis feed directly into our strategic document in the NDC. We can find them together. We can updating them. We are now updating our NDC 3.0 with more ambitious objectives from the data what we are collected in the last five years. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these insights. I think we have time for one or two questions from the audience, if there are questions. I'm looking into it now. Katja?
Hello, my name is Katja Eisbrenner from Guidehouse. I would have a question to you, Dr. Bakari, on the rooftop. You mentioned the rooftop hot water heaters, I think, or electricity, or both, actually. If you, and I know that, and I have been involved a little bit, like many years ago. If you had to do it again, like, so you have a lot of experience, and what would you do differently, or would you do exactly the same in setting up the program? I mean, we have advanced, but happy to hear any thoughts on that.
Thanks, Katja. We will take a second question and then go for a round of answer.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dube from Zimbabwe. Just wanted to ask Holger if we can have access to the document you're referring to online.
Okay, thanks for the questions. Also, there's a third one. Okay, Cedric?
Mainly a second one. So, in your best dreams, what is the volume that Article 6 can move in the next future 5 years, maybe?
All right, so we have three questions. One was addressed to you, one was to you, Holger, and the third one, I mean, you can potentially answer if you want all the three of you, yeah? So we start with Tunisia.
Thank you for your question. This program is called the ProSol ELEC program. It started in 2010, and we have now more than 150,000 households equipped by rooftop PV, and we will continue with this program with two other programs called ProSol ELEC Economic, for economic category of consumption, and for social consumption also. We cover at least not less than 3 million citizens, households in Tunisia. And it is a program, it is continued program, national continued program, financed by the Energy Transition Fund, which is governed by the ANME. It is coming from subsidies, from taxes for air conditioner and other. This project is continuous. We have more than direct impact, social impact. We have 6,000 jobs created by this project. It's a success story in the region that we can duplicate in other regions in Africa or in Asia or overall in the world. But also there is other sector we have developed in that project. Some training center, some office for consultancy. So the program is continuous, and we will reach more than 1,000 megawatt per year, starting from the next year. So the mechanism here, it is there is a subsidy directly from the fund, Tunisian Transition Fund, and a loan in the bill of the utility of electricity. This mechanism is succeeded because this mechanism. Now we have to generalize, to expand to all the 3 million households. We need the Article 6 for such projects, not only for residential sector, but for public sector. I mentioned PIPCOOL. PIPCOOL is concerning 3 ministries: Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and Ministry of Research. We will install PV generator on all buildings in those 3 ministries, and the energy efficiency action like air conditioning class 1, relamping, and many other action. But we need also to generalize to the other ministry. We have 20 ministry. So it is the first pilot project. It is a big success in Tunisia, and we want to continue in the residential and public sector.
Thank you. Over to you, Holger. If you want to quickly answer, maybe on the 2 questions that are still open.
Yes, happy to. On the handbook, I think my colleagues even already put it up here on the screen. It's available for download at the BEEP website. And please share the information, spread it out. I think it's more people use it, the better. On the second question, it's a good one. It's a good one. I think in the wildest dreams, of course, it would be to close the finance gap that I managed in the beginning. It will not happen. I don't think it will. I think it's too early to say that. I think it's really too early to say that. We're just at the moment of pilot projects for the time being. So I think we have to really assess this year by year and then come up with a number. Sorry. No.
I want to compliment maybe Nana for the question of the potential.
So again, I'm unable to put a number, so whether it's from the climate finance value or carbon savings value, but I can paint a picture in the context of Nigeria. So when you think of Nigeria, there are over 200 million people, right? There's rapid urbanization, and in terms of housing, there are millions of units of housing, both formal and informal, because we have a lot of self-built systems as well. So imagine if we have a stronger structure around that in terms of regulations for green buildings. Imagine if we're able to operationalize Article 6. I mean, the volumes in terms of climate financing, or even in terms of carbon emission savings, I think will be in the hundreds of millions. So I think there's a massive opportunity just thinking of the population and the housing currently that we have, and as well as the deficit, which is also in tens of millions units. Thank you.
Many thanks for these answers and this discussion. With this, I would like to close the first panel, but not without a group picture. If we could maybe come together, stand up and take a picture of this first panel to continue then with the second one. Thanks. Nice to see you again. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. All right. We will now continue with the second part of today's session here at the Building and Cooling Pavilion at 30. The second part will still be on the topic of finance, but we will discuss the role of public finance and the role of development banks, public development banks, in supporting green building portfolio development and investments. And again, this session will be structured similar to the first one. We will have a keynote speech and then a roundtable discussion. And for the keynote, I would like to invite Nicola Picciattino to the stage. Nicola is the Secretary General of the International Development Finance Club and Head of Public Development Banks at AFD. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much. May I sit? Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be there with you. Let me recall first the public development banks, IDFC and Financing Common. IDFC, the International Development Finance Club, is a club of 27 public development banks, mostly national and regional, and we are the biggest provider of climate finance in the world. Every year we issue around 200 billion of green financing. We are also the founding member of the broader coalition of Finance in Common, the coalition of the 536 public development banks, representing 2.5 trillion of investments every year, which is more or less 12% of the global investments. Just imagine if we are able to green all of this, I think we have won the fight against climate change. It's a long journey, but this is what we are trying to do. I would like to recall three messages in the opening of the session. The first one is the importance of finance and how important it is to mobilize public but also private finance. We all know, you are all specialists here, that the demand for cooling and for financing cooling is set to triple by the mid-century. But the amounts are decreasing. According to the last report, we have witnessed a decrease of 7%, and it's completely incompatible with the necessity to increase those financing. And we do believe that the public development banks are key